Rep, Speaker, Speaker recognizes Representative Pepper.
And that's about what my speech is going to be like. It's probably rare in the history of these farewell addresses that it's also an introductory address, which mine is. I'm not saying that my time here has been short, but actually there were speeches given yesterday that were longer than my term. So I can say that it has been a mere 8 months, but what I can tell you about 8 months, as I've told people before, human beings are gestated in that period of time. And that's a long period of time for somebody who is doing the gestation, correct? That's what I hear anyway. I can also say that that period of time is somewhat similar to the period of time served by the very person that the House building is named after, Cora Anderson. She served for just a little more than a year, and a building is named after her. Now, I figure if she could do that in a year, 8 months, how does the Capitol presented by Jeff Pepper sound? Can we do this? All right. So, the 8 months is not such a short period of time. I have to say this, that what was most troublesome is not that period of time. I knew what I was getting into when I ran for this seat, 8 months. What I didn't know was that the party that was so strong for the right to work would deprive me of the right to work over the last 6 months. I have been in session for 19 days. 19 days during my term. I have met in committees once with each one of the committees that I was on. So I have to tell you, the legislative experience, which I've heard so many members talk about with such reverence, is an experience that I can feel somewhat, but I never really experienced. There were times during the course of the summer that I was just angered by this, and I've just came to accept it because I did have the opportunity to work with all of you, and I'll get to that in just a second. People asked why I ran for this job. Here I am, 70 years old, and all I could say is alcohol was involved. And then but there is actually more to it than that. I did actually have a long history of political involvement. When I was 22 years of age, graduated from Michigan State University, the first thing I did, other than get my books for law school, was to run for county commissioner in Wayne County. And I'm going to tell you guys, I ran as a Republican. And that was at a time when you had Bill Millikins and Everett Dirksen and Jacob Javits. These are the kinds of Nelson Rockefeller. These are the Republicans that I sought to emulate. Now, many of you are wondering, well, why don't you talk about Jefferson and Madison, with who you also probably engaged in your early age? And no, I'm not actually that old. But it is true that this is my 8th decade of life. And I ran because it's never too late to be what you might have been. Now, in my life, I have been instructed how to cower under a desk because nuclear bombs are going to be dropped of us on the Cuban Missile Crisis. I watched as somber caskets rolled down Constitution Avenue bearing the body of our assassinated John Kennedy. I saw Reagan get shot. I heard Bobby Kennedy got shot. This office happened the week before my filing deadline, and that was January 6th, 2021. When I saw an angry group of ordinary Americans ransack and pillage our Capitol, inspired by fear, by division, by creating suspicion. And I thought, this is the most awful chapter in my life that I've seen in my country, to see the symbol of our democracy attacked and savaged for no good reason. And that's why I ran. Now, my campaign was not one that was well thought out, obviously, because that happened on the 6th, and the filing deadline was on the 10th. But, heck, there was a void to be filled, and I thought that I would fill it. Right off the bat, I realized, what have you done here? Because I ran against an opponent who will be joining this chamber because the district's changed, and Alabas Farhat will be a member of this body here coming up in January. But Alabas called me when he saw that I was decided to run. I'd never met him before, never heard of him. He says, well, listen, my team and I are really anxious to hit the ground running, and like, who are you? I mean, why are you getting in the way of this? And I said, well, Alabas, you're talking to my team. That was me. And as it turned out, Alabas was right. His team was ready to roll. I mean, here is, I get up in the morning and I just a kick to the stomach. Here's Alabas feeding some homeless veterans. Now he's walking grandmothers across the street. Now he's having a call to action. I mean, his Facebook presence was just intimidating to me. And I thought, okay, seriously, what I'm doing is I'm going to embarrass myself, and I just want to go crawl in a hole. Well, here's the thing about an election in February. You don't have to knock on doors because nobody's going to answer them anyway. It's cold. You don't have to buy lawn signs because you can't put them in the ground. So our campaign was phones, and it was mailings. And as it turned out, being a fifth-generation resident of Dearborn, the name actually carried some weight, and I won, and here I am. Now, when I got up here, I've already said what I did about, my ability to actually engage in the legislative process. But it may not have been a perfect fit for me. I mean, things happened to me. Like, the first person to actually reach out and congratulate me was the speaker, who sent me a text early in the morning, and I thought, wow, I'm not in Kansas anymore. A couple days later, I'm sitting in a bar with some friends of mine, and we're talking about what I'm going to do, and my phone rings, and I said, oh, it's the governor. And I pick it up. Hello, this is Gretchen Whitmer. It was the governor. Now I got to tell you, Metallica is blaring in the background. I've got to go find some place where I can hear what the governor has to say. And so the only place of refuge was the men's room, where Secretariat was taking care of his business. And then he proceeds to flush the toilet. And I thought, okay, this is not a good way of introducing myself to the governor. But I came up here, and I was treated very, very well by everybody I've met. I have to say that Brad, my Republican colleague, invited me to participate in the Bible study group. Now, as I told Brad, I was raised a Catholic. So Bible, what is it actually? Because we Catholics tend to look at the Baltimore Catechism and okay, that Bible thing, we've heard about it, but, really. So I get into that meeting in the morning, and a number of people, mostly from this side of the aisle, and I thank you for your discretion, by the way, because you know what I'm going to say. We start reading around the table. And so I believe Senator McBroom was next to me, and he read the first thing. Now it's my turn to read a passage. Okay, this is a reading from the book of Malachi. Now, for those of you who don't know what Malachi is, it's Malachi, which everybody quickly told me it's the book of Malachi. Okay, from that point on, I said, listen, Brad, I'm not coming back unless we stick to the books of John, Matthew, Paul, single syllable. Well, anyway, one of the things that I was stunned with when I came up here was actually, and I'm going to wrap this up because there are more important things that other representatives with experience have to say, but I came up here and, was kind of stunned to learn actually something different about the concept of checks and balances. I kind of thought that was an intergovernmental thing. No, it's checks and it's balances. Checks that get given to you and balances in your account. I mean, the money up here is just stunning to me. Throw a fundraiser in Dearborn, $50, $100, $200. First thing I see when I'm up here is, here, join us at a reception here for an hour. $1,000 contribution if Well, okay, if you want to be that way. $2,500 for, okay, yeah, thanks for coming. $5,000, now you're talking. $10,000, okay, you're a friend. And so you go to one of these things, and you know, it's pretzels. Really, for all this money? So, anyway, I have participated as best and as robustly as I could. I've met so many wonderful people up here, and serving in a minority position, it's all I know, and it's actually nice to actually have this microphone and be able to talk to it, knowing that nobody's going to wield a gavel to tell me to sit down, right? And I'm just going to say, and that's not a criticism of the pro tem, but it was kind of interesting for me to see that the deliberative process, which I thought I would be a part of, I thought that maybe I would hear speeches from the floor that could possibly convince me to do something different than I might have thought. But there was just so little of that. I have to say that I think and hope that we will do better in this next legislature. So with that said, here is what I have to, oh, there was one other thing I had to say. Now this one, I'm sorry. This is the corruption of lucre, the corruption of it and the effect of it. One day we're in Chambers, I believe it was June 30th. Tommy Brand brings me a bottle of his steak shake. I have it sitting here on my desk, and there's a bill introduced by Tommy, coincidentally, that day that we're going to vote on. And that is a bill to raise the age for buying cigarettes from 18 to 21. Now, that's something I would never agree to. But I see Tommy over there. He's looking at the board. I'm looking at the steak shake. I think, Ryan, really, can I just do this to Tommy? And so I waited until I knew that it was going to pass. So yeah, I joined in yes. So there was a second portion of that bill, which was the criminal ramifications of it. Tommy got up and left the room. I voted no. Sorry. Sorry. All right. Well, in conclusion, what I want you guys to know is that I am, like everyone else, very blessed to have been a part of this particular legislature. I came here and saw from both sides of the aisle people who were dedicated and passionate and principled and smart and courageous, in my view, because this is not an easy thing to do. I know for all of you who have been campaigning in your districts year after year, serving your constituents, this is hard work, and it's a sacrifice. And I personally know that you're all remarkable people for your willingness to do it, and your constituents are well served. As we move into our new legislature and a new majority, I hope that we will take the time to perhaps view this as not being a moment where power shifts, but potentially a movement from both sides of the aisle. You're going to have 27 new members, I think, on one side, 28 on the other. There is an opportunity here for those who are returning to teach those who are arriving on how to conduct legislative business that is fair and respectful of both sides. So I hope that the Democrats, my side of this aisle, will realize that this is a moment to grab. This is a moment to be good. This is not a moment to be petty, and I don't believe they will be. So there's a guy in a movie, The Bridge of Sighs, I don't know if it's Bridge of something or other, Bridge of Spies, Tom Hanks, and he's representing a prisoner who is going to be hung. He's a treasonist. And Hanks looks at him and says, well, like, aren't you worried? And he says, would it help? Repeatedly, he asked in the movie when he's presented with some horrible potential, would it help? And I'm well certain that being a better, kinder majority will help, but returning the favor will not. So I encourage, and I believe that the Democrats who will be in charge now will be that way. And if they're not, I'm coming back. I'm not watching this on TV. All right. Well, with that, I'm sorry. That was much longer than I intended. I thank you all. It's been my privilege. I have learned from and have been enriched by all of you. and I thank you for that.